to another episode of Amazing Conversations. I am your host, Andrea Revels, and I am elated to have in my presence a young lady who we have recently gotten to know, and she is an absolute joy. I tell you, she feels like another one of my daughters. So if you would, join me in welcoming Miss Tesia Reed. Hey, Tesia.
Thank you so much. I definitely agree with you there. Y'all have become my Albany family, and I appreciate that so much because when you're a home away from home, it's nice to have that family bond.
Well, listen, I mean, you just came right in and fit in. You know, you've been to the house and had dinner with us, watched movies, kicked off your shoes, propped your feet up on the sofa. All fine with us because, I mean, we really love you and am glad to have gotten an opportunity to know you. So, many of you may know that Tesia is the morning anchor for our local WALB, and she's been here. How long have you? Is it over 2 years?
It's coming up on 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
3 time does pass.
It really does.
And I wanted to take just a moment to have you with us today because I know that you bring a lot to the table, and then there are so many young people who, you know, they wake up and they see you on TV, and, you know, it just does their heart good just to see, okay, she looks like me. Mm-hmm. Which is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you because, of course, you know, March is a women's, as they say, herstory month. And to me, the role that you play is that you too are writing history, herstory. You're writing it. And so many people look at you and they wonder, how did she get there? What do you need to do to become the morning anchor of course, for us, I mean, WLB, that's the main station.
Right.
So give us some information as to your journey. You know, what did you do as it relates to, you know, was there a certain educational path you had to take, or just kind of give us some insight?
It's funny because I feel like it just was always meant to be. I went to New York when I was a young kid. I want to say maybe 7 or 8. And I visited my aunt who lived in Connecticut. We went to visit New York. And there's literally a picture of me behind an anchor desk at that young age. It was called Mom TV or something. Now, obviously, at that point in time, I didn't know that I was going to be an anchor, but it's cool to go back and see something like that. So in high school, we had a morning news show, and it was a class that we took. And I did that for I think 2 out of the 4 years there because you had to be a junior. And so that was kind of the start of it. So I'm doing interviews during lunches and asking people about prom or their spring break. And then we're editing it all together and putting it all together for our Friday morning news show. Then I went to Georgia Southern. Okay. And I had no clue what my major was going to be. I thought education or maybe criminal justice. You know, you're just kind of going through that phase of figuring out what you want to do.
What you want to do, right.
And so I had taken a few classes, and I was like, what am I, this isn't it. When I was going through, and then I was like, wait, broadcasting, journalism, communications, it's a no-brainer. Why did I not think of that before? And so luckily, I only think one class was a waste. The other ones could be used as elective, so it still went toward my degree. And I ended up getting a degree in multimedia communications from Georgia Southern.
Okay, multimedia communication. All right, so, and I guess I always thought, is that similar to like a journalism degree? Okay.
Yeah, it's a journalism background, but they kind of were ahead of the curve in knowing that it's going to be internet and it's going to be iPads and different things. So it wasn't just strictly TV. So you learned a little bit about even Twitter back in the day, which I hated it. I still am not a big fan of Twitter, but we even learned about social media back then as well. So it kind of integrated all of those things.
Okay. Wow, now that's interesting, seeing that you kind of stumbled upon something that you had been previously somewhat introduced to as a child. Even in taking the classes at Georgia Southern. So did you find that it was easier seeing that you had done so many of those things in school?
And I just found that I was like looking at the education program, and I'm like, this really isn't that really isn't what I want to do. And I took a criminal justice class. And while, like I said, it was able to be an elective, I was like, this isn't really what I want to do. So I had to really think, what do I want to do? And so I had to think back. And one of my role models growing up, living in Atlanta, was Monica Kaufman. She's now Monica Pearson now. But seeing, like you said, someone like me, a black woman, she had blonde hair, curly hair, she did her thing.
Yeah, she did.
And so being able to see that, I looked back and remembered, like, oh, that was something that I enjoyed and I wanted to be like that. And so I think it just kind of all came back, and obviously God had a lot to do with it too.
Absolutely.
Because it's just meant to be. And it just happened.
So would you say to be an anchor or in the media, the field that you're in, would you say that there takes a certain amount of curiosity or nosiness?
Definitely. I'm definitely nosy. I can tell you that for sure. I'm always wanting to know more, what's next, and asking questions. And I'm actually a little nervous right now because I'm normally on that side of the camera asking the questions. But it's always just wanting to know more and never just going with what someone says. So even growing up, you know, I may have gotten in a little trouble for talking too much or talking back maybe. But all of that was because I never was satisfied with just a yes answer or with just the status quo or just what it's supposed to be. I just wanted to know a little more.
Yeah, which I think is great. You know, a lot of times people, they kind of steer away from doing the things that they enjoy doing. And apparently, you know, we say nosy, but you seem to be quite a people person, loving to talk. And a lot of people, they get paid to talk. And listening at, you know, even the excitement in your voice. I mean, I hear you saying you're nervous, honey, but we can't tell it. If you haven't said it, we would not have even known it. So in going to Southern, is that a 4-year degree that you can, okay. And then straight after the degree, are there some like internships that you have to do, or you go straight to the news desk?
Yeah, so I did an internship. It actually was a part of the degree program. So I was able to walk in December with my cap and gown, but I didn't get my diploma mailed to me until after my internship was done. And so they helped me find the internship, and I knew I was going back home to Atlanta. And so they had got me an internship with the mayor's office,
Oh, wow. Okay.
which was really cool. It was under Mayor Reed at the time, so everyone was like, oh, you knew him, or we were not family and didn't know him beforehand.
Different Reed.
Different Reed. Same spelling, but different Reed.
Okay.
But they had a city station. They still do, Channel 26. And so I worked in the Office of Communications, which was really cool to see. One, growing up, I grew up in Powder Springs, so it's the suburbs. And then Georgia Southern is a predominantly white institution. Although we kind of stuck together, us. And so sometimes it didn't necessarily seem that way, but it definitely was. But to go home to an atmosphere where almost all of the faces looked like mine, in my internship was really inspiring because, you know, these people are in suits and ties and mayors and, you know, different. The mayor now, Keisha Lance Bottoms, was actually on city council at the time.
Okay.
And so I was able to work some of the city council meetings, doing the cameras, following the mayor around, doing positive stories for the city. So I learned a lot. And I think internships are so important because I learned more than I learned at school. So little things like stand-ups, which you see like the reporter doing something like this and just kind of talking. I didn't really learn much about that in school. And so I learned about that there, and then putting together a resume reel or resume tape, I was able to do that there. And so all of that set me up for eventually getting my first job.
Okay. Wow. And I guess that's important to know because a lot of young people, once they get their degrees, they don't do the internship. But the internship allows you, just as you stated, an opportunity to kind of get on the job training and can introduce you to some things, actually to see a lot of your book knowledge or work actually put into place. So that's helpful. You mentioned that you're from the Atlanta area, and of course coming to big old Georgia. Was that somewhat of a culture shock for you?
It was a little. Well, my first job was in Columbus.
Okay.
So a smaller city as well, but they kind of have a city feel downtown. And then I moved to Savannah after that, and so that was definitely a city feel, right on the beach, and so it was really nice. But when I came to Albany, it's funny, a lot of people said when I first moved here, they're like, why'd you come to Albany? But I enjoyed it. I feel like and I still enjoy it. So many people embraced me, like the rebels. And so it just felt home. I didn't have to deal with traffic.
Yes.
I didn't have to deal with certain things, And so, I mean, of course, there's pros and cons to everything. But I have thoroughly enjoyed my time here in Albany.
And I'm sure you've had an opportunity to learn a lot from here because many of you know Tesia started working the morning news, which, of course, our friend Carla, Sands occupied for many years. And, of course, she's still with the station in another capacity, but I'm sure she served as somewhat of a mentor to you, would you say?
Yes, and I think that is so important across your entire walk of life to have a mentor. So she kind of took me under her wing. I remember like one of the first pictures we took together, and I look back now, I'm like, ooh, I look so young. And just, baby face, like kind of fresh and not knowing, because this is my first full-time anchor position.
Okay.
In Savannah, I anchored, but it was more to fill in. So she kind of took me under her wing, kind of gave me some tips and advice, because she was with me on the morning show for a little bit before she moved to the role that she's in now. And we still, I can go ask her pretty much anything, advice-wise. And then she actually put me in touch with the Lee County Female Minority Mentoring Program, which I ended up mentoring last year. I didn't do it this year because COVID and things kind of got, derailed, I guess. They still had a smaller program this year, but it just turns into you actually helping to mentor as well. And so just kind of keeping up with that tradition, I think, is important.
Well, absolutely, and it's always important to reach back and help someone else. I mean, I even think about often, even with you coming and serving as the anchor. I mean, you're involved with the community quite a bit. I know you partner with New Visions, and we did the United Way. You remember we were out there raking and cleaning yards.
Those pictures just popped up in a memory recently on Facebook.
Yeah. And then we did the reading. We went and did that at Live Oak. You went and assist with it. So those are just some of the things that I know you've helped New Visions. Look, I love the fact that some people, they think when they arrive, there's certain things that they can't do. And you seem to be a well-rounded and grounded person to know that, I've been given this opportunity to serve, or to, I say serve because that's what you're doing. You're serving your community, even though that's your job, but still you do it with such a spirit of excellence. We know that that's something that you enjoy doing. And when you take the time and the opportunity to say, okay, yes, I am on TV on a daily basis. I visit a lot of living rooms. And people know you, that you may never know their names. Right. But when people see you on TV, you represent a beacon of hope for them. Because again, as you mentioned, to be an African American woman, young African American, beautiful woman, and so many people see you and they say, I want to do that. And for you to even take the time to mingle in the community and give back and serve, to take time to come on, of course, amazing conversations with me, to even share with others, okay, if you want to do this, this is kind of the path, or this is a starting point. Because a lot of times people, they just don't know. They have an idea of what they want to do, but they just don't know how to start. Right. And for you to come on and to share that's a major help to somebody. I mean, we don't know who we're helping. Look, the next news anchor may come on, then just as you talked about Carla, they may say, I remember Tesia Reed. You never know. Yeah. Now, I know that a lot of other people don't know, but your husband, Mr. Matthew, is an awesome chef. And he, of course, has catered several events for us. And you all have recently been blessed with an awesome opportunity in the Atlanta area to open your very own restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So if you would take the time and tell the people about the restaurant and just a little bit about, is it Matt Choose?
It's Matt Choose.
I love that name.
Well, it's interesting because even that has an Albany tie to it. We wouldn't be where we were or are without Albany. So he had enrolled actually in a culinary program in Savannah, and that school actually ended up closing. So it was kind of God's plan for us to come to Albany.
Mm-hmm.
So he went to Albany Tech and got his degree there.
Wow.
And he's still in touch with a lot of those people there, the chefs and the teachers that kind of trained him. And so he loves to talk about that. He did their gold program and was just kind of a star student there, which is funny because it kind of helped him come out of his shell because he was super shy before. And so I think that really helped him. But anyway, so after that, he worked at a few places across the city, and then he's always wanted his own. And so he came up with the entire menu. He came up with the name.
I love the name.
Because his name is Nat. So it's Asian Fusion.
Asian Fusion. Okay. Okay.
And so the other thing, though, was we were in the midst of a pandemic. We just opened in October. And so it's like, okay, how do we do this?
Yes.
And so the idea of a brick and mortar or a standalone restaurant, one, super expensive and hard at that time because things were shut down. Restaurants weren't having people inside. So this actually is what they're calling a ghost kitchen. It's kind of a newer concept. And so it's a big warehouse, and there's 42 kitchens, individual kitchens, inside of this space.
Wow.
And so it's delivery and takeout only. And you can call, or we'll take it out to you, or you can do it like through the delivery platforms. But it's growing. And so it's, at first it was slow, like most businesses when you start out. And you kind of question, like, oh, is this what we're supposed to be doing? Like, how do you get your name out? And so a lot of that was social media. And so going back to even with Georgia Southern years ago, teaching me about social media and the importance of it, I was able to help post pictures and get some of these food influencers to come out and get some of their audiences to come. So now I feel like we're starting to finally get a good customer base. And so eventually we do want to open our own restaurant. But still, it's just the pandemic, just still trying to figure that whole thing out.
Oh, yeah. And I think the concept that you all started with is an excellent idea. In fact, I had never even heard of that option until I think Matt was at the house. I don't remember, maybe it was Christmas or it was one of the times you all were at the house, and he was talking about he said cloud kitchen, I think is what he said. And he was saying it, but of course I didn't really understand it. And of course he explained it, and now to see that you all are actually doing that, I mean, I think that's absolutely awesome. Now, when you say Asian infusion, so kind of give our audience a little more definition of what's an Asian infusion menu.
Okay, so one of the number one sellers is the bulgogi cheesesteak. So bulgogi is more of, it's Korean. They're thinly sliced steak that they grill. So he took that idea and kind of mixed it with like a cheesesteak sandwich.
Okay.
So he has those flavors on the beef, but then you still have your provolone cheese and he does peppers and onions. So kind of like infusing those two. He's half Asian himself. And some of the stuff, I love her, but his mom makes is just super Asian and like a fish head soup or something, just something that a lot of Americans would not want to eat,
Right.
And so being able to fuse those together and then have something different because there's so many restaurants in Atlanta.
Yeah, that's true. So he has found his niche. You say the restaurant is doing great. And I believe I actually saw a post. Did I see Cam Newton?
You did.
I thought I saw Cam Newton at the restaurant. So apparently the word is getting out, and a lot of times the best form of advertisement, of course, is for people that have eaten the food and they go out and they share and tell others. And I know, just as I mentioned, he's prepared many meals for us, and I mean the food is delicious. He's an excellent, and not only does he cook. Now Matt, he gives you a presentation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he doesn't just cook the food and put it on a plate. He has to make sure it's pretty and nicely placed. I mean, he's just a great guy, and
It's
I'm glad.
Passion for sure.
You can definitely tell that,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm so glad that the two of you all are on this venture together, which kind of brings us to another spot because you know he's in Atlanta working to build a legacy for the two of you. And you're here in Albany, but I know you love your husband.
I do. I miss him.
So I know that eventually you'll be making your way probably to the Atlanta area.
Yeah, so I'll do my announcement here with you guys. The first time.
Y'all hear that? Drum roll. She has a special announcement to make.
Yes, I'm actually leaving Albany. So my last day will be April 22nd.
Wow.
So that I can go home and be closer to him, and with the restaurant and you know be near my husband. Right now I'm back and forth every weekend.
Every weekend.
Yes,
Wow.
and so he's been gone since October.
Wow.
So you make sacrifices and you do what you have to do. It's no problem, but I'm definitely ready. But I will miss Albany so much. Like I said, no regrets. It's been absolutely amazing. All of the people and like going back to the community events, like those were things that helped me meet people and feel more comfortable because you can get on TV and be in the news and just do it every day, but it makes a difference when you like know people and like are doing like the Women's Health Fair, which obviously we didn't get to do this year or this past year either, but it's just fun as well, and then kind of letting people see that you're just not a TV anchor. You're not just this person who's on TV. You know, oh, wait, she actually has a personality or she actually likes to be, you know, out and about. So, you know, I'll definitely miss things like that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, we're going to miss you because, like I said, you just came in and became a part of our family, which I know Atlanta isn't that far. You know, we just may have to make a couple road trips if we want to see. We need to check out Matt's shoes. And but definitely the city of Albany is going to miss you. You've definitely made your mark, you know, in the short time that you've been here. I don't know whether WLB is going to be able to find someone that's as vibrant and entertaining as you are, but hopefully the powers that be are searching. But I want you to know, on behalf of me and of course my husband and our family, that we've really enjoyed getting to know you and your husband. And this isn't a farewell, it's a we'll see you a little later down the road.
Well, even with that, like going into the mentoring of things, like I even look at you and your husband as mentors for us as a couple, because it is nice to be able to look up to someone who's been together for, how long have y'all been together?
Look, I told her she was going to turn into the interview. She can't help it. It's in her blood. We have been married. June 12th of this year will be 28 years.
See? And like you have to have that to look up to know. And you know, you typically ask, you know, what made your love last so long or your marriage? And everyone has a different answer. But it ultimately comes down to, and I think we've talked to you guys about that, it's communication.
Communication. That's it.
But I wouldn't know that unless you talk to people who have been together and gone through struggles, because it's not easy for sure.
Yeah.
But it's definitely worth it.
Absolutely. And communication is the key. And I'll tell you, it actually does our hearts good when we see, you know, young people starting out, getting married. Because did you get married the year that you came out?
Yes.
Oh.
So we are coming. February is 3 years.
3 years.
So we got married in February of 2018. Went on our honeymoon and then came to Albany that April.
Oh, wow. Wow. So your life in the past couple of years has been a real whirlwind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm sure that there's still greater things in store for you and Matt. And again, we wish you all the success. I don't know what your next career move is going to be, but I'm sure when that time comes, you'll let us know.
Yes, God has his plan working, so it's coming.
So again, I'd like to thank you for joining us today on Amazing Conversations.
Thank you.
And I'd like to encourage our audience, if you would, like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on Instagram. Listen, Tesia Reed is an awesome anchor. We hope to see her more in the future. She will be leaving Albany the end of April.
But Albany will always be in my heart.
Albany will always be in her heart, as she will always be in our heart. So again, we love you. Thank you for tuning in. Until the next time, have a good evening.